Anybody out there? Hey, Bouger, welcome. How are you doing today? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Hey, Prepping by Faith, welcome. Gosh, two of my favorite ladies already here. Don't have to wait for anybody else. We'll wait just a minute or two. Anything that you got particularly grabbed you as far as the second part of chapter 2? There was an awful lot of very detailed content. Well, while we're waiting for the others to show up, I will tell you the LDS store in Round Rock is now open, and it is open to non-LDS church members, which I thought was fantastic since I'm not LDS. But we went over there this afternoon. We went to dinner and our favorite Mexican restaurant, and then after that, we just drove on over to the LDS Provident Living Center, Home Storage Center, and picked up a couple of things. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so I was able to get a can of apples and 2 cans of flour and a packet of milk. And it was really interesting. They have volunteers from the church, from different churches. And the couple that was running the store today come from Waco. And they drive all the way down from Waco. Hello, Aqua Run Girl. And so he said, you might want to read this. And so this is the Hungry Winter, 1944 to 1945, true story of survival. So it turns out that the guy who was monitoring the store and helping you get your cans and checking you out and everything else was originally Dutch. And when World War II started, he was 4 years old. When it ended, he was 9. And he talks about his survival in Holland in this little booklet that his wife put together for him. Surviving in Holland while the Nazis occupied Holland, and then losing everything when the Americans bombed out the Germans to get rid of them. So really, really interesting little 8-page story about this guy's life. I want to see if I can't get him on and see if I can't get him to interview on a live and kind of share his experiences. He was talking about, and Europe is a different culture. I'm going to say that 60 to 75% of Europe smokes. Here in the U.S., we don't smoke that much anymore. It's less than 20% of the population smokes. But he was talking about they could get 2 rations of potatoes for 1 cigarette. I thought that was extremely interesting how people were that addicted to tobacco. But I guess back when I smoked, I probably would have been the same way. Okay, so we're talking about something that struck you in particular, and Prepping by Faith says the gangs that are probably going that evolved as a result of the war and everything else. Oh no, sorry to hear you did that, Uncle Al. Yeah, pray for your quick recovery. I went over to of course, for Father's Day with my daughter and everything, and her King Cavalier or whatever puppy got me again, and so this is now infected, and so I've got to keep it covered. And everything else, but it just loves me too much and too hard, and those claws are kind of sharp. Okay, so let me see if I can't get into my prepared stuff here. One of the things that struck me, and we'll get into it at the very end, was his bug out bag system, and I was kind of impressed with that. And so even though, and in my history of prepping or survivalism, if you want to call it that, started out as a hunker down. That was, of course, during the Cuban War, our Cuban Missile Crisis, and we thought we were going to be suffering from nuclear fallout. So everybody had cinder block fallout shelters in their backyard, and we practiced the drills for a nuclear blast in school. We ran into the center hallway and sat with our back against the wall, put our head between our legs, and all that kinds of stuff, covered our head with our hands and all that kinds of stuff. So that was the primary way I was. Then I became more of a bug out person. That kind of coincided with the movie Rambo. And but we didn't really have good bug out bag systems back then. We're talking in the early 80s. And so I was really, really impressed with a lot of the stuff he had in his bug out bag system. And we'll talk about that at the very end. So let's get this first one up here. So what did he say the cardinal rule of bartering is on page 95? There, he actually had two. And I think this is kind of like a common sense that when you go buy a car, you don't want to look too interested in the car, because then the price goes up and the salesman knows that he's got a hook and he's not going to give you any discounts. But if you walk away, the price goes down dramatically. So on page 95, he talks about two things you should do in your bartering practices. Never show weakness. Absolutely never show weakness. Even if it means walking away from a deal of something you want, try to negotiate from a position of power, that you have the power. And I would add to that I'm fine with saying, look, if you want, I want more for what I have than what you're offering, and try to see if you can't go that way as well. Fantastic, Bouger. That's the second point, is don't act desperate. The minute you're acting desperate, like I need antibiotics for my kid, you got to give this to me. You got to work out this deal. The minute you do that, they know you're desperate. And the minute you show desperation, the price goes up, tenfold. They've got you because you are committed to that. So showing a little bit of strength by disinterest or being willing to walk away from the deal is quite important. And so you don't want to show desperation. Okay. What did he say are the three primary stages of collapse on page 95? See if I can get this to pop. So, of course, you got the event, and I'm not so sure we're going to see a cataclysmic event like the beginning of yeah, absolutely, prepping by faith. I'm not so sure that we're going to see, when you go to the movies, you see all these things where there's an EMP or there's a nuclear attack or there's a CME, something happens. There's a bug that escapes and automatically 90% of the population becomes zombies. All these things are just sudden cataclysmic events, and that's kind of what he experienced with the war in Bosnia. I'm not so sure we're going to have a cataclysmic event. I think it's going to be, we are in the event now. We're in SHTF, and it is in a rapid decline. And so we're kind of taking a look at that as it's happening in slow motion in front of us. And then he says there's the calm stage, and that is that, people kind of are in disbelief, and so they don't know what to do, and they're just kind of looking around, kind of like zombies themselves, and that's the calm stage. Now, he emphasizes earlier that the calm stage, when you are a prepper like we are, that during that calm stage, that's when you need to take action, because all those around you are kind of stupefied and don't know what to do, that gives you the opportunity to go get the gasoline, to go get the food, to go get the whatever you need while everybody else is trying to figure out what's going on. And so that's kind of your early warning system to say, now you can go do what you need to do. And the rest of the people are going to be kind of sitting by the wayside wondering what happened, but they're going to be there tomorrow. It's not going to last long. Tomorrow, the stores will be packed. But today, while they're kind of stupefied, go take advantage of it and get the stuff you need. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. As a matter of fact, I watched a video today by The Angry Truth, and he was talking about that, about what's going to happen when the Roe v. Wade decision, whether it's overturned or not, happens. And he said, stay away from areas that are most likely going to be where there are going to be riots and destruction and everything else. And Jane's Revenge has already said that, they're going to do things to make us regret having changed the Supreme Court ruling if it changes. And they've threatened violence, so stay away from city centers. Absolutely. Stay as far away from that as you can and watch it degrade all by itself. And correct, Aqua Run Girl. That's absolutely correct. So the way I kind of emphasize that is, my first father-in-law was a police officer. He was a sergeant, motorcycle sergeant, and he, although he was there to serve the community, he also had a family that he needed to take care of. And so there were times that his family took priority over the work. And I think you're going to find that same thing amongst a lot of the law enforcement officers, that once something happens, they're going to be more concerned with protecting their family than standing against a humongous mob where they're greatly outnumbered. So I wouldn't count on law enforcement at all. Let's see what we got next. So he kind of defines what he thinks is a great leader on page 100. And he listed 3 specific traits that he thought that a good leader should be able to do. What are those? And along with that, why do you think it's important? Hey, Aaron, welcome. So the current question we're working on is at the bottom of the screen. Right? Yeah, we need to survive, not win. Have to be able to make tough decisions. And like what? So I'll give you an example from another book, and this is going to be a discussion in our Thursday book club. But one of the things they talk about there is when they have to ration food, the leader gave a little bit more food to those who were willing to stand guard duty and who are willing to protect the people, because they're doing something extra. They need a little bit more strength, a little bit more endurance. And so the leader had to do that, but at the same time, justify it to the rest of the group so that they don't feel that they've been set off. Absolutely. Sending people off in the group who could get killed. So realizing, number one, the value of everybody, but also realizing the importance of getting whatever the mission is accomplished. And then being willing to understand that every mission is dangerous and you just might lose somebody. You might lose a friend. You might lose a relative. You might lose somebody who's critical to the group. But it's important to have the mission accomplished. Yeah, that's really a tough one. And Tyler, thank you. Yes, remain calm under pressure. Think critically. Be resourceful. All great. Yeah, he mentioned all of those. Thank you very much. Setting up routines like what, Boucher? network with other leaders, right? But when we talk about routine, so some of that could be, in the Army, there's a routine. At 6 o'clock they play reveille. At 7 o'clock they play mess call. At 8 o'clock they play first call. These are the bugle calls over the loudspeakers. And then at noon you have mess call again, where you're going to go to lunch. And then at 1 o'clock they have and there's another assembly. And then at 5 o'clock you have retreat. So that's the routine. That's the work day, and everything is governed by these bugle calls that are played throughout the entire post. Then you also have the routine of standing guard and how that gets transferred. And you have routine of acknowledging each other. So routine of food and stuff like that. So that all becomes important. People look forward to certain things. If like my dogs, okay, I feed them dry dog food all 7 days of the week. But on Thursdays and Sundays, we add a little bit of wet food, dog food, to their dry dog food. So that's a routine for them. They expect to have that food on Thursdays and Sundays now. I don't know how they know it, but they just they know it ahead of time, and they get into it. Network with other leaders, absolutely. Other leaders being outside of your group. They have to be well respected and powerful. And part of that being well respected is telling it like it is, being willing to be honest and let people know exactly where things are, not hide things from them, not play favorites. What else can we think of as far as being well respected and powerful? Aqua Run Girl, we'll get into it, but there's one incident in there where Mike and Christian first meet Jim and his wife and daughter when they're after picking up the daughter at college and their car breaks down. I think that shows a rapid change in people's personal insights and belief systems after SHTF. Get things done, absolutely. Keep people busy. Prevent worrying within the group. You do that by being honest, and sometimes honesty also means, hello, prepper camper. That also means not withholding anything from them, and not playing favorites. Not telling partial information on one side and partial to another. So fantastic. Mental strength is very important, Aqua Run Girl. It used to be in the Army, we had chapel call. And so it was kind of encouraged that you go to church on Sundays. And so that becomes part of the faith-based portion of that mental strength. You've got to have, and you'll find that in the Marine Corps especially, they have a very high fundamentalist Christian what would you say, group of Marines, that's what they really strongly believe. And you have to, because, there's two things that usually one of two things are going to come out of a soldier's mouth if they think they're dying on the battlefield. And it's either going to be Jesus or it's going to be mama. So those are the two words that you hear uttered the most from dying people. And so, having that faith, having that mental strength, having the ability to be calm while others around you are in panic, that's going to be critical. That's going to be very, very important. Yep. Let me see. I would think having a proven track record. Let me put this one up here so we can all read it at the same time. Having a proven track record. So, for an example, might be before things developed, that a person was already proven they were fair and capable. Absolutely. That's and I think that prepping by faith brings up a very important part there. And the only way you can prove ahead of the fact that you have credibility, that you have dependability, that you have trustworthiness, is if you establish that relationship ahead of the time, ahead of SHTF. And so, if you're going to wait to establish those relationships with your neighbors, that's going to be too late. So now is the time to start developing those relationships. And it's perfect. Right now is summer. So people are going to be out grilling, and why not have a neighborhood get together and a grill, meet your neighbors and stuff like that. Fantastic opportunity. So Walter Barger, welcome. Let me see here what you have to say. Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I hope I can live up to them. Now, there's a couple other people in here that have outstanding channels as well. Charlotte Prepper just joined us. She's got a good channel. Prepping by Faith has a fantastic channel as well. So, if you would scroll through these, see if you can't look them up on open up another tab for YouTube and open up their channels and see if you can't subscribe to them, because we got a lot of fantastic content originators who are. Bouger Prepper is another one. As a matter of fact, I've been doing this for 50 years, and Bouger Prepper taught me something new. She did a video just recently on this German fire starting kit that I ordered because I had never seen it before, and I learned that from Bouger Prepper. She taught me something new. So fantastic people. I hope you can have an opportunity to subscribe to each and every one of these. Charlotte Prepper, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you, Prepping by Faith. Yeah, if you can go ahead and put a couple of those in your link too. Yours is a very important link. One of these days, I'm going to learn how to edit like Prepping by Faith does. Gosh, she's got a beautiful channel. Okay, so let's talk about, and then let's talk about organizing the community. And this appears on pages 100 and 101. What are some of the things you want to do to organize the community? We talked about a couple of them. We talked about developing a routine. Then also getting to know other groups around and their leadership. See if you can't begin some sort of coordination there. What else does he recommend? So one, he says, develop a clear structure that everybody can understand who's responsible for what, and probably inside of that routine as well, when they're going to do it and how they're going to do it. Provide a framework of laws and punishments. So here's a tough question for you. Is punishment, if we punish like with a child, let's say you swat a child on the hiney for doing something bad, bang. The purpose of that is say, that was a bad action, don't do it again. And a little bit of corporal reinforcement. And although a lot of places consider that illegal nowadays, but anyhow, so the purpose there is to avoid that person repeating that action a second time. So if we're in an SHTF situation and somebody does something egregious, how do we enforce the rules? What would the punishment be? Are we going to go back to pillars and stocks like in the 1700s? Do we restrict their intake of food for a while? Thank you, Aqua Run Girl. Do you have a channel of your own that we could all of us could subscribe to? So, think of, what do you do with somebody who's stolen something, let's say from the group's pantry, or some other egregious sin? Somebody's forced themselves upon one of the females in the group. What are we going to do about that? And so I think those are critical questions you have to think of now, so that when it does happen, you can develop those things. And I strongly recommend you read The Reversion by Stephen C. Smith. He's got some really good ideas. I think they're very realistic on what's going to happen as far as law and order and punishment in a post-SHTF world. So, provide a framework of rules, laws, and punishments for those, and then strictly enforce them. no favoritism, no exceptions. You do this, this happens. In a crew, each person needs a job duty, absolutely. So we're going to find out who's best at what, and then use people in the position that they're best for. Use any excess, we talked about that. Network with other group leaders, be willing to and have the power to enforce sanctions if one of the groups ignores or breaks the rules. So we've got a trade agreement. Let's say, my neighborhood and then the neighborhood over, we've got an agreement. We're going to do something. We're going to provide something to them on a weekly basis. They're going to provide something to us. We go deliver our stuff and they don't deliver theirs. Now what happens? Do we just forget it? Are we going to enforce a sanction? How are we going to do that? Because we don't want to turn them against us, but at the same time, we don't want to accept them not fulfilling their part of the bargain. So how do we go about enforcing those in an equitable way? And I think that's something else we have to establish before we get there. And then keep the group informed of your long-range goals. And I would submit, even break those goals down into intermediate and short-term goals. And because one of the most important things about having a long-term goal is being able to see where you are and how much longer it's going to take to get where you need to be. Kind of like that downloading on when you download a program, you get that progress bar and it says you're now 95% complete or 97%. You say, oh, just a couple more minutes, I'll have the program. So kind of the same thing when you're talking about projects within a group. Break it down into manageable points where people can celebrate success. So I think that's going to be very, very important, celebrating success on a regular basis. We need to know if we can get it. Yes, absolutely. So let me get that up here real quick. We need to know we can defend ourselves and if we can enforce sanctions. Absolutely. So Charlotte Pepper says she understands that we're predicting another pandemic, have goals. Well, the one that I'm hearing, and I've spent, so I've gone to Academy 2 days in a row now, is that the largest rifle ammunition manufacturer in the U.S. Is 70% dependent upon military contracts and 30% dependent upon releasing that to the civilian market. And so President Biden said, if you continue to sell 5.56 millimeter, 2.223 caliber, 0.308 or 7.6251 to the civilian world, we're going to cancel your contract for the military portion, which is 70% of the revenue. And so, they're trying to work that out. And part of that, so I've been buying ammunition that's being threatened to be closed out here by the end of this week and see what I can do to do that. Okay, and usually Mylar bags is going to be about a 30-year shelf life. If you've got oxygen, if you put an oxygen absorber in there and you've got it pretty much vacated of any oxygen, now you can do this a couple ways. One way is, of course, you can buy oxygen absorbers. Another way is carbon dioxide removes all the oxygen as well. And so if you think of it, dry ice is carbon dioxide. It's highly compressed carbon dioxide. So what I did, if I had a lot of bags I was filling up all at one time, I'd take about the thumb's tips worth of carbon dioxide, put it into the Mylar bag, push as much oxygen out as I could, and let that carbon dioxide melt because it's heavier than oxygen. So it'll go down into the bottom of the bag, push the oxygen up out of the bag. Then once that's melted, you've got all the carbon dioxide at the bottom and the oxygen up top, and you seal that off and you're good to go. We don't want to have goals so far off and so that people get frustrated or they feel that they haven't accomplished anything, that they feel like they're working themselves together to death and they aren't seeing anything. So celebrate those intermediate goals. I think that's very, very critical. Let's see here. Okay, we did that. So let's go to this one. What professions does he recommend that we have in your group? And this is on pages 101 and 102. And some of these may not be current professions. They may be somebody's hobby, because a lot of them are not active professions we'd be looking for. So, of course, you got the obvious, the medical professions, absolutely. Doctors, nurses, dentists, surgeons. So that's going to be one, absolutely. How about some other ones? I'm going to modify it. He says soldier, but I'm going to say old soldiers are really important. Yeah. Just put an old in front of that Aquaman girl. Make me feel like I'm important. Mechanics, absolutely. Carpenters, to build stuff. And along with that, the other skilled trades, plumbers, electricians, and all those kinds of people. This is one that's mechanic, carpenter, plumber, seamstress, absolutely. Somebody repair clothes, make clothes. Leather worker, I don't know of too many. Now here in Texas, we have a lot of saddle makers, and that might classify as a leather worker. But other than that, I don't think there's too many professional leather workers around that. We might have to look for that as a hobby of somebody's. And then same thing with a blacksmith. I don't know that many blacksmiths around. I would go down here. We've got a Renaissance fair about 30 miles away from us here, and they're very active in the summer. I'd go down there and try to establish a relationship with a blacksmith that's down there at the Renaissance Festival. People who care and people who are like-minded with you, absolutely. And then Aqua Run Girl says, SHTF experts. Well, I'm going to give you some bad news. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I'm not an expert. And I think there's a lot of people who self-profess to be experts, and I don't think they are. Like I just showed you with that thing that Bouger Prepper taught me as far as a fire starting tool. I've never heard of it, and so I think that the reality is we're all learners together. We're in the same classroom, and some of us have gone to the classroom, have gone through this grade once or twice before, but we're all in the same grade. We're all learning the same thing, and we're all in this together. And I think that's kind of the way to look for it is I may have something I can share with you, but you also have something you can share with me. A barber, yes, absolutely. Communications, and not just ham, but also in other ways. And Pam Anderson says a barber, basically, and somebody, what would you call that? I know there's a term for it, but I've forgotten. Trim hooves on horses, somebody who takes care of horses, and animal husbandry, who can take care of cattle, sheep, goats, a gardener, absolutely. I have a black thumb. I should show you my pepper garden out in the backyard. It's not looking like the best. I bought 3 of those expensive Hamama, what do they call those? Any other kits where you're going to eat the greens before they grow up. And all 3 of them rotted, and I had to throw them away. So I'm not that good at gardening, so I definitely need somebody who's a good gardener. Large group cook, yes. And food preservation specialist, great additions. A weatherman. True. And here in the Austin area, we get affected by hurricanes quite often. If they hit anywhere down around Galveston, and remember, we're the same latitude going south. We actually go due east almost to get to Houston, which is on the course. So we're due east to Houston and due south to Corpus Christi, and then Galveston is just south of Houston. So we get a lot of hurricanes here. We get a lot of tornadoes. I'm 1 mile away from the Balcones fault line, which is a major seismic zone. It's been inactive for a couple 100,000 years, but it's the southern extension of the New Madrid fault line. Let me go back up here. See what we got up here. So we've got jack of all trades, master of none. That's true. That's true. They may not be a master in something, but they have a lot of different skills that they can be good at. And that's what I kind of consider myself. Is I'm not an expert in anything, but I do know how to do a lot of things the basic way. So, absolutely. Oh, Bouger has a great suggestion here. Know who your Amish community is. They have leather workers and blacksmiths, yes, and fantastic bakers. And we've got 3 Amish, not Amish, but Mennonite communities around us here within about a 15-mile radius. And great people. They're always at the Saturday farmers market. So make sure you go to the farmers market in your local area and get to know your local farmers. And a lot of them may be Mennonite, Amish, or Pennsylvania Dutch, etc. And establish those relationships with good people to have in your group. Isn't that true? And Aqua Run Girl, does it feel like it sometimes? Well, I'm going to tell you my personal secret. I have the brain the size of a sewing thimble. And then when I'm trying to learn this stuff, somebody's coming at me with a fire hose, and I'm trying to hold all that water from the fire hose in this little bitty thimble. And I feel like there's so much comes in and just goes right back out, and I retain so little. And but it's at times it's overwhelming. So that's why I have to just sit back and kind of like today, make notes, and see how I'm doing. I'm with you, apartment prepper. Give me something to grow and I can kill it right off better than anybody else. Thank you for showing up there, Prepper Camper. We appreciate you being here for a short while. Okay, let me see. Let me get back to the banner here. Where were we? What professions? Let me see if we've left any out. A butcher. We see if we can't find a butcher. And somebody who's skilled in field dressing animals that you kill. Operate a tractor, yes. Backhoe, drive farm truck, bale hay. We drove, there's a big hay lot just quarter of a mile from our house. And I looked at all those big round bales and I was thinking, I can remember back when I was younger and we had the little rectangular bales, and my 2 cousins and I got paid $0.015 per bale that we stacked and loaded and put in his barn. And God, that was hard work. Oh gosh. Animals in SHTF will not have processed food from the feed stores. So we'll have to grow our own whatever the livestock eats. Absolutely. Or that may be the second season. In the first season, maybe you might have enough stockpiled up. But right now it's in critical short supply. So it's fertilizer. So, get what you can while you can. Okay, next one. So Selco says that the ideal group maximum size is about 150 people. And he divides those into groups of probably 50 as a platoon. And then those 50 inside that platoon are divided up into 5 10-person squads. And so, that kind of makes sense. He's kind of using a military organization. And I'm surprised. It looks like the organization in the Serbian army is probably about the same as the U.S. Army. And that is, we have 4 squads to a platoon, 4 platoons to a company. So we usually have about 175 people in a company, in a U.S. Army infantry company. So that's kind of modeling that same type of an organization. I think the next point that he makes is one that we need to discuss, and I would like to see some suggestions on how we can do this. Well, come on, let me get down here. I got to turn my mouse on. My pad won't let me scroll down. But basically what he's talking about is plan, tasks, and staffing, so there can't be a development of a we versus they mentality. How do we do that? I'm sure that some of you have been in a position in the past where you were in a group and let's say you had to, whoops, I'm sorry. I turned off my mouse again and it messed up. But you've been in a position where, let's say you volunteered at the church and they found out that you were good at vacuuming. So you got stuck doing all the vacuuming all the time, every time you went. You never got to do anything else, any of the easy jobs. Or if you volunteer for a soup on Sunday, a Sunday, whatever, you volunteered to do the dishes once and you did them so good that every time you go from now on, they're going to have you do the dishes. So you get this kind of, why me? Why are you always picking on me? Can't you have somebody else do it? I only volunteered because nobody else wanted to do it at that time, but I don't want to do it all the time. So how do you stop those feelings of we versus they, or I'm being picked on, or you're giving them the preferential treatment, the preferential jobs, etc.? Yes, there is always that potential, but how can we mitigate that? How can we reduce it? How can we get it so that it's not as obvious? Split people in families. That's a good way. Yep. Alternating tasks so that people get a chance to do a variety of things. I think that's a great idea. And we can do that kind of with that routine that we talked about, where you develop a duty roster. So let's say on Monday, you have the following jobs. Somebody's going to prepare breakfast. Somebody's going to go out and get the wood. Somebody's going to go get the water. Somebody's going to do the cooking for breakfast. And so you got those names filled in, but you're going to rotate those so that maybe the person who is doing the cooking today gathers the firewood for lunch, or, on a different day or something, but you've got somebody rotating through all of those responsibilities. You got it on a chart where people can see that it's being equally divisible amongst all the people. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea there, prepping by faith. Yeah, you want to establish bonds. But one of the things you want to do is, at the same time that you want to have these organizations where you have a squad of 10 people that are always working together, you also want to have that squad working with other squads so that there's not that much differentiation. You don't get too much of a familial relationship with this squad versus the other squads. How can you integrate them and get those 20 people working together on a regular basis, and then another 10 people join in? So now there's a new mix of 20. So how do you rotate that so that different groups are always working together in order to establish those bonds? Great idea. Rotating the work, absolutely. Know each other's strengths and challenges. Spend time doing activities together in good times so that each doing their part comes easy when times are tough. Absolutely. And that goes back to that critical point we mentioned earlier about establishing those relations now instead of, kind of depending upon it at the end. Absolutely. Always have a leader, somebody responsible for coordinating everything and making sure that the job gets done. Good point, Aquarun Girl. And then we do camping and remote adventures to bind our group. Absolutely. So practicing what you're going to be doing after SHTF, if you can practice that before, it becomes very, very important. I've read that there are some families that have been turning off their electricity, just flipping the breaker at their house for a full weekend. And, how are we going to survive this? And so now they're putting themselves in a real life situation so they can see how they're going to react, how different people, and then discovering what they needed to be. I need to write a book on all my prepping mistakes. When we had the great freeze, the snowmageddon here in Central Texas, just a little bit over a year ago in February, I think it was. I thought I was all well prepared. I had a gas generator with 10 gallons of gas. I had a solar powered generator with, capable of 5 kWs. And so it got down to 4 degrees here in Central Texas, and that's unheard of. And I started to put this stuff out in the backyard, and you can't collect with a solar panel if there's no sun. If everything's gray from the clouds, there you can't use this. You got to use the gas generator. Well, then how do you get the electricity from outside to inside? Because in order to run that cord inside the house, I had to leave a door ajar. Well, leaving a door ajar with a northerly wind at 4 degrees is not a right thing. So we decided, well, we need to come up with a different way to get electricity into the house because all of my plans didn't work. So it's best to find out your weaknesses before SHTF instead of after. Everyone should know how to do everything the group needs done. And I think that goes back to, I think what Prepping by Faith said, maybe I'm wrong, a jack of all trades, but master of none. I forget who said that, but that was a very wise point. Everybody needs to know how to do a little bit of everything. And one person needs to know a lot about doing that one thing that they're a specialist in. Thanks for pointing that out, Uncle Al. Appreciate it. And absolutely Prepping by Faith. That is so critical. Defining, and part of that is defining success. So we will know we are successful when, and if you can tell people, this is what success looks like. We're going to build a prepper pantry, and we'll know we're successful when we have an 8x10 shed constructed that is waterproof, safe from invasive rodents, capable of holding our pantry, protected from the weather. It'll stand up to at least 50-mile-an-hour winds. When those conditions are met, we have success. So if you can be that specific in defining your goals, then people know what's expected of them. But all too often, when I was doing leadership training for corporate America, one of the things that we did was we had a drawing that we handed person number one, and they sat back to back, and person number two had a clipboard and a pencil. And so person number one tried to explain the drawing to person number two behind them, and person number two had to try to draw what they heard. And gosh, what you would think are very simple directions. We never had, in the 20 years that I was in leadership training, I never saw two pictures come out the same. So it's very funny how what we think is very clear and succinct to us is not necessarily clear and succinct to others. So very good observation. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, let's talk about bug out bags. Oh gosh, got to turn my mouse back on. I guess I just need to leave it on. Come on, mouse. There we go. So he talks about a shelf system for his bug out bags. Tell me what that shelf system looks like. What is it? Is it something you could use? Absolutely, Ms. Anderson. Absolutely. Cherish the wisdom of seniors that grandma or grandpa may not know how to shoot, field dress, cook, preserve, deliver babies of all kinds, cut hair, stitch a wound, work on engines. You got it. Absolutely. I got into a discussion yesterday on a channel, and she didn't realize that, part of the younger generation uses the term boomer derogatorily towards us, saying, you old farts don't know what you're doing. The world has changed. We know better. You're just a boomer. Shut your mouth, go away, live your retirement. And so she was using the term boomer, and she didn't understand that a lot of us look at that as a derogatory term. Now, if you call us a baby boomer, that's different. But just using the word boomer, that's kind of a derogatory term as far as a lot of us are concerned. So yeah, I can understand where other people were turned off by her constantly calling us boomers. Hopefully we still have something to offer. Need a spiritual leader as well. Yeah, one who understands the end times. I wholeheartedly agree. Somebody who reads things in context too. So the shelving unit is, so you have this shelving unit at an exit door or near an exit door. So you have your bag there, and you grab component parts to fill your bug out bag before you leave. And that's going to be, I think he said 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds to fill it up with what you need from all this assortment of stuff. So you might have summer clothing and winter clothing. You might have shelter. You might have different weight sleeping bags. You grab the ones appropriate for the time that you're leaving or bugging out. Yeah, that saves a lot, Aquaron Girl. I think you're a lot smarter than I am. We've got bags that are built, and one for me, one for the wife, and I also put one together for my son-in-law and my daughter. And the deal with that is, happy summer solstice, by the way. Today's the longest day of the year as far as sunlight here in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's winter solstice, the shortest day of the year for them. But it's also the beginning of summer. So, you kind of use those marks in time. Maybe it's the equinox, autumnal or vernal equinox, that you say, okay, I need to go out and check my bug out bag and get rid of the heavy duty clothing and replace it with lighter clothing for the summer. Or maybe I need some more rain protection during the spring. But yeah, I have to change mine out on a regular basis. And, that gets kind of tedious. So yeah, I think you're smarter than I am, by having it all there organized where you put in what you need when you need it. Absolutely, Boucher. Yep, that's right. So I did remember that, right? Yay, that thimble's working. I have a tendency to agree with you, Prepping by Faith. It would take me that long to figure out what it is I'm doing. So I think there are certain items, however, that probably would remain packed. They're going to remain consistent. A water purification system, a fire starting system, your hygiene system, maybe your wood cutting system, your knife, your saw, things like that. I think all those things pretty much are going to remain constant throughout any season, and you could probably leave those in the bag ready to go and just add the other stuff to it. At least that would be my solution for that. Well, the days start getting shorter. We have less sunlight starting tomorrow. I think it's 3 or 6 minutes a day that the sun that we increases or decreases our days until December 21st, our winter solstice, which is going to be our shortest day of the year. One of my employees bought me a doormat, and so it says cell phone, keys, wallet, and it with a question mark behind each one, and put it at my front door, because you would not believe how many times I get to the front door and don't have my cell phone, my keys, or my wallet. So I thought that was very thoughtful of them to provide me with that reminder. Great, yeah, but still, that's that thing I'm talking about. That can become kind of a cumbersome thing, switching out between seasons. My biggest problem is I will use a flashlight, and then after I use the flashlight, I'll leave the batteries in it, and the batteries will eventually corrode, and that costs me a good flashlight. I did that to a couple of my better flashlights, older flashlights. I have a couple of Army flashlights I did that with, and the D cells, and that's kind of disheartening. So I need to remember to take the batteries out and only put them in the flashlight during an SHTF event when I'm actually going to need it. Oh, you are so absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, my daughter will call us before she comes over with our grandchildren and ask that, because I usually have one on me, and she'll ask that I lock those up before she brings the boys in. So yeah, having something available in open sight or on a shelving system where somebody else could gain access to it, remember that you're responsible for that and anything that happens to it, especially if somebody's in your house. So very good point to bring up. Thank you. Thanks, Uncle Al. Appreciate that comment. Okay. Now, he talks about potential contents on 109 to 110, but then he also gets into a detailed list of his contents on 125 to 128. So I'm kind of skip that just a little bit. He recommends, let me get over here to the banners. He recommends that you carry 3 1-liter water containers. What are those, and why does he specifically recommend those 3? Oh. So he calls one of them a Nalgene or a plastic bottle. And I'm going to change that a little bit. I would say that instead of that Nalgene, something like the Life Straw bottle or the Seychelles bottle or any of the bottled water purification systems, so that you have an inherent water purification system with you. This, and good reasoning, Aqua Run Girl. That's that old prepper adage, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Yes, a metal bottle or canteen is the second one. And he specifically mentions the clean canteen. I have my single wall canteen is from the Pathfinder store. Dave what's his name? Anyhow, Pathfinder products, which is, he's probably one of the best known bushcrafters here in the U.S. He has a school he runs up in Indiana. I'm too old to go to it, I think, especially now with a broken hip. But a solid metal container. And he recommends a single wall so that you can use that water container to boil water if you need to. And so, that becomes a cooking vessel. It serves 2 purposes. Number 1, a water container, and number 2, a cooking vessel. And so, yeah, that's it. And then the third one is a collapsible bottle, so that if you need to pick up extra waters, or if you're carrying water in your clean canteen, your metal bottle, then you can pour that into your plastic water bottle so that you can cook out of your metal one. So Pam is kind of agreeing with me there. 1 to collect water, 1 to filter into, and 1 which can be heated to boil water. Single metal wall, absolutely. And I think I've stressed this in every one of my water videos that I've done. I've stressed, make sure you mark and identify, or have a way of identifying, the difference between your clean water and your dirty water. Because if you, let's say, take water collected in this vessel and then pour that water into a water purification system, and then take that clean water and put it back into the water you collected from in the original place, you still got all that bacteria and virus and everything else adhering to the wall inside that container. So you haven't done anything except waste the contents of your purification system. So if you're going to clean water, once it's clean, put it into a bottle that's only had clean water in it. And that way you're going to protect yourself from any kind of disease, waterborne disease. Water bladders, yeah, that's that collapsible, absolutely. Speaking of water purification, he talks about some different methods that he recommends for purifying water, especially in a bug out situation. What are some of those ways, and what are some ways that you want to add to them? He's got one, and I've been intrigued by it for quite a while. Purification tablets. That's the number one way, and probably the cheapest in the long run. That's what we did in the Army. So they gave us all these little brown bottles of water purification tablets. So you take your canteen, dip it into a rice paddy or swamp or whatever and bring it back up. You throw in 2 of these tablets, screw the cap back on, shake it, get it clean, and that supposedly got rid of all the bad stuff that was in the water. Although I will say that even after those pills, they did not issue us enough toilet paper. Now, so he talks about purification tablets. He talks about straw filters. Absolutely. Bottle purifiers. Electronic disinfection. And I think that's a critical one. That's one I've been intrigued with for a long time, and I've never really, I just haven't gotten around to buying one. But he calls it the SteriPen. Thank you, Bouger Pepper. That's exactly right, the SteriPen. And basically what it is it's a battery-operated UV light that you put down into the water, turn it on, and the UV kills all the bacteria and protozoa. I'm not so sure it does anything for the heavy metals like fluorine and chlorine and stuff like that, but it does remove virus and bacteria. So that's another way. And yeah, then Pam's talking about that here as well, UV sanitizing by letting it sit in the sunlight for 4 hours. So you're using the ultraviolet rays of the sun to accomplish the same thing that the SteriPen would do in 2 minutes. It takes the sun 4 minutes to do. It takes a little bit more concentration. Great. Let me see. Is there anything else? No. Okay. He gives us an idea of what he carries as far as bug out foods. And I think that's, in my opinion, what he offers us as far as bug out foods. I think he's woefully short in his offering to us. He only mentions 2 specific items. And so let's talk about those two specific items. And they're basically what I did in Boy Scouts. And then let's see if we can't add some stuff to it. Yes, you can. And one of the things that I strongly recommend is in your bug out bag, have a kerchief or 2 or 4. And so when I collect water, it's just a habit I got into it a long time ago. I'll take my kerchief and fold it over the mouth of the bottle I'm collecting water in, and then I'll rubber band that, or I'll zip tie it or something, and then dip it in so that I'm filtering out as much of the larger elements as possible into that container before I put it through whatever purification system we're going to use. So I kind of do a double filter. You can do the same thing if you have a drip through coffee system with coffee filters. Do this. You can do the same thing there. Pour the water through the coffee filter before you start sterilizing it or anything else. Prepping by Faith, thank you so much for making it. Appreciate you being here. Granola bars, yep. So the 2 he recommends are, let me see if I can find my notes here. Instant soups, like the onion soup, and I think Nora's has a vegetable soup and a tomato soup and stuff like that you can just add to a hot cup of water or something like that. And so, yep, instant soups. And then he also talks about energy bars. What are some other things you might want to have in yours? I just recently became affiliated with this organization, but I think these are perfect for bug out bags, these individual servings of, like this one is scrambled eggs. So, having the new technology that probably was not available to him in Bosnia, there's so many companies out there that are selling individual servings of instant things, even ramen, that you can use to enhance your bug outs. You can get MREs available through the commercial markets. They're called XMREs. They're for the civilian population. You can get those and add those to your bug out bag. Anything else? Candy. I have a box, and it's probably a small book box, moving box, but it's full of root beer, peppermint, lemon drops, butterscotch, lifesavers, all different kinds of lifesavers, a lot of wintergreen lifesavers, a lot of butter rum lifesavers, all kinds of hard candy. Absolutely. One of the things, and this is a secret they taught us in the Army was if you take hard candy with you, especially on a march, it helps keep your mouth and throat hydrated. The sucking action does. So, that will preserve some of your hydration while you're marching if you have hard candy. Powdered drinks would be good as long as you have something separate to mix them into. You don't want to, all too often, I think people add powdered whatever to their drinking water. So if you're going to add, if you have one canteen and you add, let's say, liquid hydration, or which is you open it up, pour the powder in for 1 quart, and then you've got this IV type of a hydration system. Liquid IV is, or no, I forget what it's called. Anyhow, there's this hydration system, or it could be Gatorade or anything like that. Just remember that once you do that, now your water is not good for mixing unless you want to mix taste with, let's say, any kind of a instant meal that you might have. So, keep one bottle separate for anything you're going to put a hydration or a Gatorade or anything like that into, separate from your other pure water. Okay. Small single-serve packs of peanut or almond butter, absolutely. Yes, and one of the other things I've seen recently is Busy Bee has some tuna meals, individual serving tuna meals, and I think that's a great idea as well. Nuts. Yeah, nuts. Oh, nuts are so important as long as you're not allergic to them. We keep a jar of cashews here. We keep a jar of pecan pralines, and we keep a jar of Spanish peanuts. And we'll probably eat. Helen and I will probably go through one of these big Sam's Club jars of Spanish peanuts about 2 weeks. Individual packets of oatmeal, fantastic. You realize that oatmeal is one of the most protein-dense, calorie-dense instant meals that there are. And so if you have an individual serving of oatmeal and mix that up, that's going to be fantastic. If you look at a lot of these prepackaged tubs of prepper food, the $300 for $50 worth of food, but you get a free tub to put them in. But anyhow, you're going to notice that there's usually 1/6 or 1/7 of all those meals is going to be oatmeal. And there's a reason for that, because oatmeal is a very important meal to have. I don't eat it. I don't like the consistency of it in my mouth. But as far as a prepper food, it's one of the best prepper foods you can have. As a matter of fact, in my pantry, I just did the inventory, redid my inventory today. Oats Quick, number 10 can. I have 13 number 10 cans of instant oatmeal from the Provident Living Center from the Mormons. Okay. Then how do we cook it? What does he recommend for ways to cook it? He recommends 2 different stoves, one or the other. I'm also going to recommend you have one of these stoves for your hunker down stove. And I'll tell you why when we get these 2 stoves up here. So he wants us to have either an Esbit stove, which is a solid fuel. It's a little tablet. You light on fire, put it down, and it's got this little folding metal stove. So that the legs spread out and it goes like this. You got the shelf in the middle and your cube sits on top of it. I will tell you, I have used those. That's what the Army issues. And I've used those extensively. I have never really been able to get a good boiling water from it. They're good for warming things up, but they're not good for boiling. But he does recommend that you have a Trangia stove, which is alcohol based. And so that the Trangia stove is basically a little circular thing. It has a lid that you can open or close and control the amount of heat that's being used and for whatever it is you want to heat up. But you're going to have to put it in some sort of a stove, kind of like the Esbit stove, so you have a stand and everything underneath of it. But you fill it up with alcohol, light it, and then you can adjust the flame to the temperature you want. Then you can put it out. You can snuff it out as well. So, but I strongly recommend the Trangia stove for your hunker down in the home stove, simply because it is almost 100% combustion. It gives off very little carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and it's very easy to manipulate inside the home so that other people won't know that you're cooking. So Pam says, to tell you the truth, Boucher, if it were me, I would say I would go for the Trangia over the Esbit. And the same thing, if you take a look at the Sterno Stoves, there are two different Sterno Stoves. So make sure you get the right one there if you're going to use the Sterno Stove. One of them is for warming. So they use that on the food service lines in hotels and stuff like that. And that only gets to 140 degrees. So that's going to keep the water warm in the water bath that keeps the food above it warm. The other one is for cooking, and that's going to get a little bit hotter. So, if you're going to look at Sterno, make sure you get the right one, whether you want to just warm things up or whether you want to cook with it. So Pam says to store the Esbit cubes in Ziploc separate from food. They are extremely stinky, and they are extremely stinky when you're using them. And I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but when I use the Esbit cubes, I get a very dark black charcoal soot on the bottom of whatever I'm cooking that is just above the flame from the Esbit stove. I don't get that with the Trangia. Yes, absolutely, Aqua Run Girl. Okay, I'm just going to cover. We're already at 1 hour and 8 minutes. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I'm keeping you over. So let me just cover the last quick pieces, and we'll do this next week, same time, same place. And we're going to be working on the first 60 pages of Chapter 3. So only 60 pages of Chapter 3 because there's so much to discuss. But on pages 120 to 121, he talks about the importance of your clothing as part of your bug out bag system. And he talks about the 4 ways that you lose body heat, especially on a cold day. And that's through conduction, convection, evaporation. Oh, there's 5 ways. I'm sorry. Evaporation, respiration, and radiation. And then take a look at that list on pages 125 to 128. Outstanding list of things that you might want to include in your bug out bag. And I don't know how many I've told this before, but I'm going to reiterate it. I think it's extremely important. Keep an inventory of what you have in your bug out bag. I took my bug out bag, this had to be, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I was still working as the HR director for an electric co-op. And they were up in Waco area. And I was driving from Waco back down into the Austin area on a daily basis commuting. So I took my bug out bag and used it as a get home bag. And somebody, and I had a brand new Kia Sportage. Somebody got a hold of the master electronic device that opened up all the trunks. And so went through my neighborhood and got everything out of my car. And so I had this bug out bag that I've been working on since 1984, and so I'm going to disagree with anybody who says that you don't get a prepackaged bag. Get a prepackaged bag if that's what you want, because you're going to spend just as much time replacing and upgrading the contents on a prepackaged as you will with one that you do yourself. I have put stuff in my bag this year, and then in 3 years, I'm going to find something I like better. I'm going to pull out the one I don't like and put the new one in, constantly upgrading, constantly working on your bag. But here's the key point I want to get across to you. Maintain an inventory. I am quite certain I lost at least $2,000 in my insurance claim that my bug out bag was stolen out of my car because I did not have a detailed inventory of what was in that bag and the prices that I paid for it. So of all the things about a bug out bag that I'm most concerned about, do me a favor, keep a detailed inventory of what's in the bag, how much it costs, in case you keep it in your car and in case it gets stolen out of your car. So anything else we need to do before we shut this down tonight? Let me see what Pam has to say here. So she kind of agrees with me. Get the alcohol stove before you get the Esbit or the solid fuel stove. Anything else we want to do before we shut down tonight? So next week, the first 60 pages of chapter 3. I sure hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And I hope you are too. I hope that I'm making it very much worth your time to be here with us and discuss these things and to read the book and get some great ideas from a guy who's been there, done that. So, okay, Exodus 4. We got to go to Exodus 4. That's all there is to it. You'd think as many times as I do this, I would have it memorized, but I don't. And one of these days I will memorize it. So, I'm sorry, it's Exodus 6. Exodus 6. So Exodus 6 says, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So with that Levitical blessing, I will say that remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Togetherness is the key. We're going to do this together because that's how we're going to survive. Take care, y'all, and thank you so much for being here tonight. I really do appreciate you. Bye-bye.